Recording in progress. Empowering Hawaii's Teachers and Technology Conference, sponsored by the Augustine Educational Foundation and Sacred Hearts Academy, Honolulu. My name is Maddie, and I'll be facilitating this session. And we are so honored to have Caitlin Ramirez join us and share her expertise through a 45-minute presentation called Media Literacy. It's a trap. Please be aware that we'll be recording this session. If you do not like being recorded, you may want to consider turning off your camera during the session or reviewing the recordings afterwards. The recording will be made available on YouTube and shared on iTeach808's website a week after the event. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Caitlin Ramirez.
Aloha, everybody, and thank you for joining me on this Saturday morning. I wanted to start just by sharing a little bit of my story as an educator with you, so you know my background. I started in the DOE in 2005 as a classroom teacher, middle school, ELA. I have taught a little bit of high school. I also teach with the DOE eSchool classes. I teach high school English and health classes with them. Let's see, in 2008, I would say, I started at School of Information and Library Sciences and graduated from there with a master's in Library and Information Science. And a few years after that, I started as a school librarian at Mokapu Elementary School, and that's where I am today. As a school librarian, I think my two main interests are promoting reading for pleasure and also supporting teachers and students in good practices when it comes to information technology and using information. And often in the school setting that translates to research and research projects. And that's the focus of today's presentation is really thinking about where our information comes from and making sure that we choose consciously and carefully and knowledgeably about where we get our information from. So it would be helpful for me to know a little bit about who's here today. So if you don't mind, if you could use the chat box to just let me know maybe like what grade level you teach or grade levels you teach. And also if you could call out what like research projects you assign, that would be helpful going forward. And just to let you know, this is going to be a little bit of an interactive activity. So you can either use the chat box or you can also unmute yourself at different times and share your information out loud. So go ahead and I'll give you a minute to enter that information into the chat box. So again, just what grade levels you teach, what subject you teach, and also if you could name a research project that you might give to your students. Okay, so we're starting to see some of you guys trickle in here. So Chemo is a student in the library school. That's great. Ruby teaches K-3 in the library. Okay, research projects, great. Lacey is a 4th grade teacher, math, science, religion, and some of the projects she does, learning about fossils and humpback whales. Okay, great. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds more to add in your information. Okay, Gina does ESL at UH. Heidi, science, CTE, health pathway at Kailua High School. Heidi, I don't know if you remember me. I thought I saw your name, but I did my teaching like education at Kailua High School. And I think I was there with you. I was with Tammy and Chad, that cohort. So hello again. Elizabeth says she is a librarian pre-K to 5, and also worked at Waipahu Elementary, collaborate with teachers for research project. All right. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate those of you who are able to share what you teach and the kinds of research projects you do. I hope that this protocol is useful, regardless of whether you're kindergarten or even at the college level. When I was doing kind of some background research into it, I do see that they use this protocol at colleges as well. So it really can serve students, especially if they haven't had the background in information literacy. This is sort of like the beginning stages of really understanding where information comes from and how to make smart decisions around that. Okay, so we're going to move on. I'm going to close my chat box here. I do have a little video to share. The sound quality is not great, so I'm going to apologize for that, but it does set the tone of our work here. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you. Okay, so basically, if you didn't catch it, you know, the fact is that we all use the World Wide Web for information, whether it's personal, professional, or academic. And there's a lot of really great information out there, but there's also a lot of misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, which is sometimes sort of lumped together under the title of fake news. And we need to really be savvy users of the World Wide Web in order to make sure that our information is top notch. So the TRAAP protocol is designed to sort of address that problem. So one thing that I see a lot is that classroom teachers are very concerned with their content, and they attend to the standards, the content standards of their area. And I definitely appreciate that. And, you know, I think that content is important. As a librarian, I'm also concerned with the process, and we do have standards that address the process. And when I say the process that I'm talking about is the research process. And while, you know, there are certain content that I want students to know about, I don't know what they're going to need to know in the future. I don't know what they're going to study. I don't know what their job is going to be. I don't know what their personal interests are. So actually, as a librarian, I'm more concerned with process than I am with content, because I want to know that no matter what their information need is, they understand how they can go and find the information that they want for their information need. To satisfy, you know, what they need to know. So I really want our students to leave understanding like how to find the information that they want, rather than like having specific content goals in mind. So there's some standards that speak to this process-oriented mindset. So one is our GLOs. And if you're a DOE library or teacher, you're familiar with our GLOs. And GLO 6 is effective and ethical user of technology. And we're talking specifically here about information technology. And one of the verbiage in GLO 6 says that students can consistently generate new information that demonstrates effective use of information tools based on access information as well as the quality of the information source. And it's that last part that we're really talking about today, is we want our students to be able to understand and recognize the difference between like quality information sources and information sources that are not high quality, and really be able to choose information sources that are of the highest quality from those that are available to them. In addition, ISTE, if you're familiar with them, they're sort of an organization that really speaks to a lot of our technology in schools. They have a set of standards as well. So one of theirs that applies to this protocol is that they ask that students evaluate the accuracy, perspective, credibility, and relevance of information, media, data, and other resources. So again, it's that idea of like looking at the sources you have available and deciding which one is high quality, which one can you rely on. And then the American Association of School Librarians also has a series of standards that we use in the library. And they state that learners can make critical choices about information sources to use. And that learners systematically question and assess the validity and accuracy of information. So again, the protocol that we're going to go through today really is a way that students can systematically question and assess the reliability of the information that they're looking at. Oops, sorry, let me go back. So I think sometimes students think about the quality of information on the World Wide Web as like good or bad. It's very black and white. This is trustworthy, this is not trustworthy. But what I would like students to move towards is this idea of a continuum of reliability, and that the dark side is information that is either like deliberately put out there to mislead people, or maybe by accident is just incorrect. So that includes misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and that's the end of the spectrum that we really want students to avoid. Now, on the other side, the light side is really accurate, unbiased fact coming from experts. That would be sort of the highest quality of information. But then there's a lot of sources that are in the middle. This would include edutainment sources, editorials, opinions, sites that might be commercial or connected to an organization that is requesting donations. It might be somewhat biased, but it's still solid information. And we can use that information. We just need to be aware of its weaknesses and kind of compensate for those weaknesses. So you've probably noticed my Star Wars theme, and you chose that because of this famous scene in Star Wars where, you know, they're flying into a trap. And TRAAP is a really great acronym to help students and teachers and information users in general understand how to go about evaluating a website. So the T stands for timeliness, and I'll get into each one of these as we continue. The R is for relevancy. The A is for authority. The second A is for accuracy, and the P is for purpose. So if you can remember TRAAP and you can remember what the letters stand for, this can help you, do a quick or an in-depth assessment of your information sources. So for the purpose of this presentation, what I would like to imagine is that we're all going to be focusing on this assignment. And this is actually an assignment that my 5th graders at my school have been given right now. They have been asked to research an organ of the body. Some of the general research questions include which body system is it a part of, what does that organ look like, and how does it work? And let's assume for our presentation here purposes that we are researching the heart. Now, I've selected 2 websites that we're going to look at and compare in terms of where they fall on that continuum of reliability. So if you feel comfortable, I would really like you to open 2 separate tabs, because you're going to be flipping back and forth between the presentation and these 2 tabs. And if you can open up these web pages. So the first one is going to be titled Heart Facts for Kids. And you can find it at this address. You have to type this specifically with the capitals and everything. It is bit.ly. It's a TRAAP 1. And then the second webpage is titled Your Heart and Circulatory System. And the direct link is bit.ly. It's a TRAAP 2. So I'm going to go ahead and give you just a minute here to open 2 separate tabs and get to those websites. If you are struggling to get to those websites, please, pop your question into the chat and I will see if I can help you with that. So I'm just going to give you a minute to open those tabs and get to those 2 websites. If you want to give me a thumbs up in the chat when you are good and you have those websites open, that would be helpful, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Okay, I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds to get the 2 tabs with the 2 websites open. The window is closing and then I'm going to move on. All right, so we're going to move on and we'll be referring back to those tabs with those 2 websites. So please keep them open. So the first part of the protocol is timeliness. And basically what timeliness refers to is first you want to consider for your research project, does it matter how current the information is? So for example, like, do we need the most up-to-date information about the heart for our research project? Why or why not? So some research projects require that you really need the most up-to-date information, and some projects, your information can be a little bit older and that's not going to be a problem. So for example, if you were doing a research project on the President of the United States, right, and you were looking at a website that was older and we referred to Donald Trump as our president, that would not be useful because we've moved on to a new president right now. So you really need to have, for that kind of project, you need to make sure that you're having something that's up to date and refers to our current president. But for something like the heart, and if it's an elementary school project, it may be okay to have information that's a year or 2, a couple of years older. It probably hasn't changed that significantly in that time. So also with timeliness, you really want to think about and try to determine when was the information published or reviewed or updated. If you can look for a publication date, if you can look for any kind of references in the text to the currency of it, if you can find a copyright date for the website, although that's not a great indication because the website could be up to date, but that particular web page could be a little bit older and maybe not reviewed or updated. So what I'd like to do right now is I'm going to give you a minute just to look at those 2 websites that you opened up and see if you can find any information about when these web pages were published, and go ahead and type your findings into the chat box. And I'm going to give you about a minute to do that. If you want to unmute yourself and share what you find, that's fine too, but I know sometimes folks are a little bit shy about that. So I'm going to give you 1 minute. Please look at those 2 websites, see what you can find about which one is more current or when those websites have been published or updated. Go ahead and take a look at those websites right now. Okay, so Ruby is already saying 1995 to 2022. So Ruby, which site did you see that copyright date on?
Hi there. It's on Kids Health.
Okay, great. And where did you find that copyright date?
At the bottom of the screen.
Okay, great. Okay, go ahead and type in any other information. Okay, great. Lacey said 2022 at the bottom of the other site, so that's a copyright date as well. Okay, any other information about when this when these web pages were published or updated. Okay, so, oh, here we go. Elizabeth says website number 1, 2022, website 2 was 2018. All right, great. So I'm glad you guys are locating those copyright dates. So when I looked at these two websites, one of the things that I noticed, whoops, sorry, I just expanded that chat box. Okay, I noticed that for website number 1, the Cool Kid Facts website, there was that copyright date of 2022, which is great to know that that website is being kept up to date. That's what it tells me, is that that website is still active and they're updating it, which is a good indication. However, I don't know when that specific page was last updated. So even though the website is being kept up to date, I'm not sure about that particular page. Now for the second website, I did notice that the information was reviewed by this doctor whose name was there, and it did provide a date reviewed, which was May 2018. So that's about 4 years ago. So, you know, that particular page has not been reviewed lately. And that gives me a little bit of hesitation. It would be nice to see if it was reviewed more recently, but the fact is, for a 5th grade project on the heart, I think that information is probably still current enough for my information purposes. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next part of the TRAAP test, and that is relevancy. So relevancy has to do with, does the information on the web page match what I'm looking for? So basically, you know, you start a research project and you have some questions in mind, what you're trying to find out. If a website has the information that you need, then it's a good fit. Maybe if it doesn't have the information, it's not such a good fit. The other thing you need to take into consideration is the information written at an appropriate level of complexity? Is it too easy to read or too hard to read? So this is where, like, for example, for a 5th grade research project on general information about the heart, you can use one type of research. But let's say you're a pre-med student at the college level, or maybe you are at the health academy in a high school level, something that's appropriately for a 5th grade project and it's written at that level, it may not be appropriate for somebody who's a pre-med student or somebody who they're doing a research paper at the high school level and they're part of a health academy. So you want to consider, like, is this written at the appropriate level of complexity for my project? The other thing that you want to take into consideration in terms of relevancy is this a website that is sort of a general website, or is this more of a scholarly website? So, you know, at those higher levels, we do want to encourage folks to use more scholarly sources, generally speaking, rather than using sort of general web pages. So I want you to take a quick look. So some of the questions that we had for this particular project was, you know, what body system does the heart belong to? What does it look like? How does it function? Those were our general research questions. So I want you to choose one of the articles and skim through it. I'll give you a minute to skim through it and think about, if you were a 5th grader and you were doing a general research about the heart, would this particular article give you the information that you were looking for? So go ahead and skim one of those articles, and then you can type in the chat box whether you think it is relevant and it meets the questions that we have, the research questions that we have. Okay, I'll give you another 30 seconds to see if you feel like that website that you're skimming has the information about what body system the heart belongs to, how it functions, what it looks like. And go ahead and type either like a yes, it is relevant, it does have the information, or maybe a no if it does not have the kind of information that you would want for our project. Okay, so Lacey is saying that the Kids Health article does have the information that we want. It is relevant to our needs. Also take into consideration, is this a good level for a 5th grader? And how do you know? Okay, 10 more seconds. Oh, Lacey pointed out that the article can be read to you. And so that is a really good thing to notice, Lacey, because again, that opens up that access, that level of complexity. So if we do have a 5th grader who maybe struggles with reading a little bit, that text to voice piece of it can provide that access. So thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so when I looked at these two websites, oops, here we go. Web page number 1, it does have information about, say, the structure of the heart. Here's a description of the 4 chambers of the heart, and it talks about, the right atrium and the left atrium and the ventricles, and it even gives us some definitions for those particular, like, specific words. We also noticed that it's written specifically for kids because the title of the website is Cool Kid Facts. So we know that the intended audience is for kids. On the second web page, again, we can see some information that answers our questions. It talks about how the heart beats. It talks about the different parts of the heart. And those descriptions are what we're looking for in our research project. Again, there's some indication that it's written for kids. And this specific site is about kids' health, but then also if you notice there's different tabs and they have information on the same topics written for different articles. So you have like articles about the heart, for example, that are written for parents, that are written for kids, and that are written for teens. So if I was a 5th grader, I would really want to make sure that I was looking at that article that was pertinent for me for kids rather than for the parents or for the teens. So I would say that this both of these websites are very relevant to our information needs. Okay, so the next part of our protocol is authority. And authority has to do with who's providing this information. So we really want to know, like, what makes the person who, or the organization who is providing this information, what makes them qualified to share information on this topic. So do they have special training on the topic? Do they have special experience? Have they been educated on this topic? Why are they an expert that we should trust? And then also one thing to consider is bias. And so you want to maybe talk to students about what bias is, and that, it's hard to avoid having bias, but you need to be able to recognize that when you're looking at an information source. It's not necessarily that if a source is biased that you can't use it, but that you have to recognize what that bias is and how that might make them pick and choose what information they're sharing with you. Another thing to look for authority is contact information. You really want to use sources where they are providing contact information, and the more the better. So if they give you an email address, if they give you a mailing address, if they give you a phone number, then those are all like testaments to the fact that this is like a real legit person or organization that you can trust in providing this information for you. So go ahead and take a look at those 2 websites. You can choose one of them and see if you can figure out who is responsible for that website. What makes them an expert on the heart? Do they have a bias? Do they provide contact information? I'm going to give you a minute to choose one of those websites and take a look, and you can chat what you type what you find into the chat box. Go ahead and take a look in terms of authority. Who is providing this information for you? As a hint, also, you could try Googling. If you find a name of a person who's responsible for the website, you can Google that person and see what you can find out about them. So Ruby's saying that the website number 2 is from Nemours Children's Health. And I would challenge you to sort of say, what is Nemours Children's Health? What is that organization? What makes them an expert in the heart, for example? I'll give you about 10 more seconds. Go ahead and write what you found in the chat about who is responsible for the information on one of these websites. Okay, so what you may have found is that on Cool Kid Facts, they do provide contact information. You can email them at coolkidsfacts@gmail.com, but that is it. That's the only contact information. And actually the contact information is a little bit unusual because they spell out the @ and they spell out the dot. So it's a little bit unusual. I'm not sure why they did that, but it does make me a little bit, it throws up a little bit of a red flag for me. Also, what I noticed was that they say that they're a free resource for K-12 schools, homeschoolers, teachers, and everyone who loves to learn. But they're not telling me anything about themselves. I don't know who is responsible for this information. It could be anybody. They say that they're doing it to inform kids and students, but really who is in charge of this website and why they're an expert on this material is not clear at all. And that's a big red flag for me. On the other hand, for the Nemours Health page, it does provide the name of a doctor who reviewed this material. And I did Google him, and what I found out is that he is a pediatric endocrinology. He worked in Delaware for Nemours Children's Hospital. And that's the other thing that I found out is that Nemours Children's Health comes from a children's hospital. And then what I found too is that if you dig a little bit deeper into that website, you can find a list of their reviewers. It's very transparent. It will give you their qualifications. And then, you can sort of cross-check that with your Google. So I feel a lot more comfortable using that second web page because I know that the information is being reviewed by medical doctors who have like a lot of experience and practice and training and who are legit experts in their field. So the second A stands for accuracy. And what this means is the information correct? Does the information seem accurate based on what you know about the topic already? So one way to sort of cross-check the accuracy is to think about your own background knowledge. And when you read it, does it check against what you already know? So, as adults, we all have some basic knowledge of the heart, I assume. So we could read it and we could say, yeah, this seems to be about right for me. You can also cross-check the information with another source. You can have students look at 2 different sources and see, well, hey, do these say the same things or are they saying 2 different things? And if they say 2 different things, well, what does it tell me? Is that like 2 different perspectives on the same topic? Or is it that one of them has the facts wrong and one of them has the facts right? What you also want to look for in terms of accuracy is you want to keep an eye out for spelling, grammar, or typographical mistakes in the website, because when you see those, it is an indication of maybe like a information mill situation, or it's just kind of a red flag when you start to see those kinds of errors in the site. So I'm going to give you a minute just to take a look at one of the sites, and we're just going to do it against our background knowledge. We're not going to cross-check. You could cross-check these 2 websites against each other. Just read like maybe 2 paragraphs, one from one website, one from the other website, and see if the facts agree. So go ahead and take a minute with that. If you feel like the facts agree or they check out against your background knowledge, then you can go ahead and type yes into the chat box. If you feel like there's some inconsistencies, why don't you type those inconsistencies into the chat box? And I will give you about 1 minute to do that. So again, if you feel like the two articles are providing facts that are consistent with each other, you can let us know in the chat box that they're, consistent with each other or with your background knowledge. If you're spotting some inconsistencies or any mistakes in spelling, grammar, typography, you can let us know about that as well. Give you about 30 more seconds. Oh, thank you, Laurel. I appreciate that coming from you. It's a great compliment. Okay, so Chemo says, seems consistent. He feels confident in the level of consistency. Give you about 10 more seconds. Lacey also agrees, feeling like the information is checking out against her background knowledge. Heidi also, both information feels pretty consistent. So I agree with you. I felt like when, oops, sorry, hold on. When I took, I missed a criteria here, which is it fact or opinion? Is it biased? This last part is important. How does the information make you feel? So one of the things you want to teach your students about is this idea of triggers, right? And we want to be on the lookout for information that either by accident or intending to trigger us into an emotional reaction. And that is something to kind of be aware of as you're evaluating websites. So, oops, sorry, the animation here is a little off. So I also felt like the two areas were pretty consistent. When I looked at the parts of the heart, it kind of registered with my background information and with each other. It talked about the 4 chambers of the heart, and they used the same language, atrium and atrium. Now, also what I noticed is that there was language in both of them that sort of indicates that this is written for kids. So, like this webpage number 1 had, little comments like, wow, sounds pretty complex. And webpage number 2 said the heart is one hard worker. So this also speaks to that level of the writing. It really seems like it's trying to engage students and show a level of like enthusiasm and energy. All right, the next and last part of the protocol is purpose. And if you teach English, or maybe we all attended English classes, the acronym PIES can help you remember purpose. So PIES is persuade, I is for inform, E is for entertain, and S is for sell. And those are a little bit out of order here, but you really want to think about what is the purpose of this website? What is the purpose of this information? Does the author or the person who's responsible for the information, does it make that purpose clear? Or are they trying to sort of maybe hide or keep their purpose like a little bit more on the down low? Is the information provided, is it fact? Is it opinion? Is it propaganda? And you may need to kind of review those with students as well. So I'd like you to go to the 2 websites, and then also, again, coming back to that idea of like, how does this information or how does this webpage make you feel? Does it trigger you in some way? Does it make you like, feel really excited? Does it make you feel really angry? Just to be aware of how that information is impacting you emotionally and what that says about the intent of that website. So what I'd like you to take a look at, and again, coming back to the sense of bias too, and bias isn't necessarily something that discredits a website, but it does put it into that middle of the continuum rather than all the way on the light side, right? Bias will cause you to select certain information to include or deselect other information rather than presenting an unbiased, fact-based description. So I'd like you to go to the two websites and just take a look at what is the purpose of that website? What is the purpose of that information? I'm just going to give you like 1 minute to do that and type it into the chat box because we are coming up on the end of the presentation. So 1 minute, what is the purpose of the website? Go ahead and put your answer into the chat as you look at it. What do you think the purpose of that website is? Okay, another 30 seconds. If you can maybe type in the chat box what you think the purpose, what you notice about the purpose, what do you notice about, fact, opinion, how does it make you feel? Okay, I don't have anybody commenting in the chat box, but in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. So what I noticed as I went through these two websites is that website number 1 has a lot of advertisements. And basically, what I feel like about website number 1 is that this is a website that's designed to generate revenue. They know that a lot of students and teachers and parents are looking for information on a variety of topics, both for information for school purposes and also maybe for entertainment or to satisfy their own curiosity. And they're capitalizing on that in order to sell advertising and make money from it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's other parts of the website that I think are okay. But ultimately, the purpose of web page number 1, I believe, is to generate revenue for whoever it is who's in charge of that website. And that sends up a little bit of a flag for me. I think, you have to be cautious when you're using websites that are for commercial purposes. Now, when I noticed on web page number 2 is they're pretty transparent about why they're providing the information. They're giving families the tools and the confidence to make health choices for their families. And then it gives some information about how the content is created and updated. So I'm a little bit more confident in the purpose for web page number 2, that it is more about informing parents and children about their health. Of course, it does serve as an advertisement for the Nemours healthcare system as well. So it's not like they're completely don't have like a commercial interest in it, but I think they really do care about the information that they're providing because they know it's valuable to parents and families. And as doctors and healthcare providers, they want people to have healthcare and good, solid healthcare information. Okay, so we just have 1 more minute. I wanted to let you know that there are a lot of resources out there on the TRAAP test. There's worksheets you can use with your students. There are videos that are engaging and you can use with your students. And that also you don't have to teach all of this every time you do a research project. When you do a research project, you could just have your kids consider the authority and find out who is responsible for the website. Or maybe you just focus on timeliness. Is this the most current information or not? But you can take it a little piece at a time, but the more you come back to like, where is this information coming from, the more students will get in the habit of really, thinking about, where is this information coming from and how trustworthy is it? And that's a good thing. We want kids to assess the quality of their information sources. So thank you everybody for playing along with me. I hope this was useful, and I hope you go forward and be on the good side of the force when it comes to information resources.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, and for everyone's participation. We hope that you find this session helpful and make some very valuable connections. Please help us complete the survey on iTeach808's website as seen in the chat, but I'll put it one more time right now. The survey will be also sent into the email address that you registered with. Please make sure to check the spam folder with any emails from iTeach808hawaii@gmail.com. You will be entered to win one of 20 $5 Target gift cards if you complete the survey by February 4th. So thank you so much for being here today, and feel free to join the other sessions coming up, and have a wonderful day.